Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Adventure Built. My name is Kelly. Today, I'm finally installing my At the Helm Fabrications high clearance rear bumper on my 2020 Tacoma. Stay tuned. Before I get going cutting big holes in my truck, let's talk real quick about why I went with At the Helm Fabrication for the high clearance rear bumper and the tire swing away carrier. And the real reason comes down to the quality versus value ratio. You cannot beat the value of this bumper and tire carrier compared to other units. I've noticed a lot of other manufacturers, the prices are comparable. When you start adding in the tire carrier and the backup camera relocate kit and all the other accessories, the price really goes sky high very, very fast. At the Helm Fabrication, it was a one package deal and you get a lot of product for your money. And check out the construction on this rear bumper. I mean, the welds are phenomenal. You can tell everything is just laser cut. Everything is just on point. I really, really like the way it turned out. I just got it back from the powder coater and my powder coater did a great job here local. It ships bare steel and you have to pick it up from a freight service. So what's in the box? You get the high clearance rear bumper, the tire swing away carrier, all of the hardware you need to install it, the backup camera relocate, the license plate, which I got the hide a hitch license plate so the plate flips up when you use the receiver hitch. All right, let's get this thing started. Step number one is going to be removing the old bumper. And to do that, we have to remove all of the wiring harnesses that go to the license plate light, the sensors, and obviously you can see it got a little damage from Moab. My sensor's pushed into the bumper, so this has been popped out, which kind of sucks. I hope the sensor itself is not damaged. But this all has to get unplugged and then we can begin loosening the bolts to the bumper itself to get that thing pulled. We're gonna begin with the trailer hitch harness here on the back of the bumper. All you do is grab the trailer hitch pin and pull straight back. To remove the towing hitch assembly, there's two pins, silver pins that hold in it. If you depress them, it will push straight through and out the front side. And now go through and remove the backup sensors. This one, because I broke it, was already out and I don't know if this is going to be reusable. Probably not, unfortunately. So right here next to the tow hitch plug, there's two harnesses. Those have to get disconnected. There's a push pin on the bottom here. You just depress this and pull straight out. This one, the push pin is on the more towards the left side of it on the bottom here. Push the pin. On the driver's side, we have to remove the harness to the license plate light. All you do is pinch the terminal of the harness here and just pull it straight back. And if you can, it's easier just to push the light out and then remove it that way. All right, it's time to remove the bolts for the bumper. We're gonna remove this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and they're gonna loosen this bolt. And this is the bolt closest to the front of the vehicle on both sides. And the reason we're loosening this is you can see this is notched here, so it actually will slide in and out. And for this, we're using a 17mm socket on an impact. And we're gonna repeat on the other side. Now I'm gonna remove the two bottom bolts here on both sides. I don't know if we're gonna reuse this, but I'm keeping these bolts with this plate. I know we're gonna reuse the bolts, I just don't know if we're gonna reuse this plate. I've gotten all the bolts removed I need to get the bumper off, and hopefully I got all the wiring harnesses unplugged. You never know, but we'll find out here in a minute. So the last thing is, when you're removing the bumper, it's held on each side, each end of the frame with little pins, and they're basically notched up. So I have to lift up, pull straight back. Remember, those front bolts are loosened and they insert in, so I have to pull straight back. If it doesn't come out, I've got a dead blow mallet. I'm gonna hit the bottom of the receiver here to kind of dislodge it, because sometimes it will settle in there pretty tight, and then it's gonna pull straight out. So you can see this side is completely free. This side is still hung up on that pin. So still fighting it, not quite sure why it won't come off. It's just being that way right now. I don't like it. I knew that was coming. Well, it's off, and I'm sure that is definitely not the prettiest disassembly you've ever seen me do. However, it is off. Move on to the next step. Well, actually, let me show you what it was hung up on, how these pins work. So this pin here slides into this notch here. I'm gonna go through now and I'm gonna pull out the entire wiring harness to reuse on the new bumper. And the only thing we're not going to use out of here is going to be the lane turn assist sensors. They do not get reused in the new bumper. Starting in the center, all I'm going to do is take a pair of needle nose pliers, press the little wings down, and these press right through. Now I'm going to remove these end caps with a flathead screwdriver. You can just pull this center section out. And once the center is pulled out, the clip should pull out. This parking sensor did not want to pull out. What I ended up doing was, in the process of pulling this wiring out, I put tension on the pin itself that holds it in on this side, and it was basically notched in where this lever wouldn't release. Now that I've basically just pushed it in a pinch, it's released that tension. Now I can push the notch. You can see it kind of release. There it goes. And you can see on the plug itself, it's got this winged tab, and that's what you're depressing. Now the bumper cover, it's just got these wings. Just gonna depress as I push all the wings individually. It pulls right out. And I gotta do that 2 more times. To remove the license plate light, you can see here the light itself has wings on it. They capture the light inside the bumper. Just depress those, it'll pull out, and then you can unhook the harness after. Finally, once you get the light exposed, this little pin right here releases the light from the harness. Now we're going to pull out the rest of the wiring harness. The old bumper is finally off. I have got all the wiring harnesses and all the sensors I need off of it. I'm going to get this stashed away and clean this mess up, because apparently all of the dirt in Moab is now in my garage. Let me get this cleaned up, and then we're going to start assembling the new bumper. We're going to begin the bumper assembly by doing the license plate. Now I got the hide-a-hitch that is behind the license plate. It's a flip-up license plate. Obviously, you don't have to go with that option. That's just what I chose. So this is where we start. Working out of the hardware bag that states license plate bracket, you're gonna have a set of long bolts and a set of short bolts. The long bolts are 5/16, and they're used to attach the license plate bracket to the bumper itself. And the shorter bolts are 1/4 inch, and they are used to affix your license plate to the bracket. Bolt and washer through the bolt hole into the slotted notch here. And now on the back side, we're just going to throw on a washer and a nut. And that's probably the easiest thing we're doing this entire bumper. Now we're going to install the license plate lights. These come in the kit. Going to pull the screws that are in here out, because we're not going to use those. Now working one set at a time, we're going to use the screws that come in the bag, and it's going to be screw through, and these are just a Phillips head screw. Make sure you angle the light towards the license plate. We're going to fish the line through first, then the light with the screws. Hold those in place from the back side. We're going to put a washer on each screw, and then a nut. And these are Nylock nuts, they should not come off. And then tighten it down. So be really careful when you're installing these lights. They're They're just a plastic housing, and these screws will just pop right through. So I am using a washer on the front and the back, just to make sure that doesn't happen. All right, and then repeat on the other side. The time has come. Time to cut the bedsides. I really don't want to do this. It is a very, very expensive 2020 Tacoma with, God, not even 10,000 miles on it, and I'm gonna cut off a perfectly good section of sheet metal. Yeah, not looking forward to it, but let's just get it done. So this is truly where precision is going to take precedence over time. I'm going to measure, and remeasure at least 3 times to make sure that this line is perfect when I do my cut, because it's a one and done. There's no going back. And the measurement starts here at where the bed meets the bed cap, and it goes down 20 3/4 inches. And I actually wrote 20 3/4 on the tape here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to run this tape line down. That way I can mark on that and make multiple marks on this tape. That way I'm not putting Sharpie on the bed. And the side here closest to the fender is going to be 21 1/2 inches. On the fender side, I'm gonna measure out my 21 1/2 inches, and I'm starting at the top of the bed where the bed meets the bed cap here. I'm gonna measure down my 21 1/2 inches. Make sure the top is still where it needs to be. Pull tight so it's consistent. 21 1/2. Now I'm gonna go to this side, index it at the very top, and this one is 20 3/4. 20 3/4. Now I'm gonna remeasure that like 8 more times, but that's it. Ran into a slight issue, and the issue is my fender flares. When you measure from the top of the bed where the bed meets the bed cap, you have to measure actually over the fender, and it comes down to this point right about here. However, because my fenders stick out so far, that measurement is not gonna be very accurate. So I'm gonna have to figure out kind of a workaround. And I think what I'm gonna do is just pull the fender off and then measure on just to the paint underneath it. That's probably gonna be the closest I'm gonna get. I've got the fender flare removed, and it was pretty dirty in there. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of Moab in there. And now I'm going to mark with my 21 1/2 inch blue tape line, and I'm gonna mark down to kind of the edge of the bed. It should be right around right here. I'm gonna measure down my 21 1/2 inches from the top of the bed to the bed rail and make my mark. I've got those 2 measurements marked. I'm going to remeasure like a whole bunch of times, probably 8, and then do my cross line, which will be the cut line. I measured like a half dozen times, and I'm very confident that these are true, accurate, and correct measurements. If anything's messed up, it's probably the tape measure. Right now, I'm gonna use my blue masking tape, and I'm gonna tape across from point to point that I have created my perfect measurements. And I'm going to use the bottom edge of the tape as my cut line itself. And now I'm just going to use a giant level to make sure that this is straight, and I'm just using it as a straight edge. It got a little jacked up. Beautiful thing working with tape is you can just peel it up and do it again. And now check my work again with the straight edge. Perfect. And this is gonna be my cut at the very end towards the rear bumper. They said this is all hidden. I just want to make sure I don't have any impacting of the bumper on the body right here, so I made sure to cut in pretty deep into there, and then it just goes kind of at an angle down to this point here. I'm feeling really confident about the driver's side. Now I'm going to work on the passenger side. That way I can do the cut in one foul swoop. So now I have to pull off the fender, make all my marks, make my measurements, make my marks, make my cut line, and then start cutting. The best advice I can give you to make sure that you get this line right the first time, which is really the only time. So get your line where you want it. Double check it, triple check it, then walk away. I went and got a drink. I came back and I looked at it again, and I noticed that where one of the rivets sat, it was different along the line than on the passenger side than the driver's side. I ended up getting another tape measure that was a little bit thinner tape, so it didn't kink as much going around the bends. And I made sure they're the exact same length. I put them side by side. They are perfectly exact symmetrical lengths. And I went back and remeasured, and the driver's side was actually 1/8 of an inch high. So again, I left, I came back, and now I'm gonna double check it and triple check it again with both tape measures to make sure this line is absolutely perfect. All right, for real this time, cutting is happening right now. iPro, gloves, grinder with a cutoff wheel. This is a big 6-incher, and it should be plenty to get through this. Let's do it. Right now, the bottom of the fender here is only being held on by this bracket, and I'm gonna pull that off right now. And it comes off with a 10mm socket. All right, first cut is in the books, it's done. It is by far not my prettiest line. I've never liked making fine-tuned cuts with the cutoff wheel. With the way the sparks fly out, it's so hard to index that blade. I've just never really liked it, especially in that awkward position of it kind of being too high to kneel, too low to squat. I couldn't sit with the camera. It just came out terrible. On the other side, I am definitely gonna use the body saw. I feel like I am way more precise with a good body saw than I am with the cutoff wheel. However, use what you have and use what you're comfortable with. That's the most important thing. Also, cutting the fender liner, you don't have to use the body saw for that. You can easily cut it with a razor knife or even a pocket knife. It cuts very, very easily. All right, I'm gonna cut the other side. It's a little messy, but the edge trim is gonna cover all of this. Now I'm gonna install the bedside support brackets. And there's 2 brackets, they each have a different bend to them. It's actually the same bend, but backwards, driver side, passenger side. The bracket basically is going to insert into the 10mm holes you just removed from the other bracket. And you want the angle to go up towards the fender, and then you want the little elbow end of the bracket to face towards the fender liner. Let me show you. I'm working on the driver's side. This bracket is going to go the same way you remove the other bracket into this 2 10mm holes. You're gonna push it all the way up against the fender, and then we're gonna drill the hole from the inside, and I might actually drill the hole from the outside because I had to take my fender flares off. Well, let's put this bracket on and see where it lands. And this bracket has adjustability, and I'm gonna have it just touch the fender. I don't want it to be anything more than that. Now I'm going to take a 1/4 inch drill bit and drill this hole out right here. The 1/4 inch doesn't fit the hardware, so I have to step up to a 15/16. Now if you're doing this with your stock fenders, all you do is when you're inserting your nut, put the nut on the open end of a wrench, and this is a 7/16 wrench. And all you're gonna do is take a piece of tape, put it over on the closed side, not on the part you're gonna thread it on, and then you're just gonna fish that up through the fender, put the bolt through, and then when it's done, it'll just pull right off. We'll take our 7/16 bolt, feed it through, washer, and then our nut. Good as gold. Both brackets are in and it's super secure. Now it's time to push on the edge trim. The kit comes with this super high quality edge trim. All we're gonna do is push it on and then cut it at the end. I've been working on this since about 10 o'clock this morning with a little bit of a lunch break, and it is now 8 o'clock at night and I'm still going. I'm just finally about to install the bumper on the truck. It's gonna index into the 2 bolts. Remember those front bolts that we left loosened? I got that all cleaned up. I blew all the holes out so there's no dirt in those threads. You want to make sure those are clean before you try to do this. You don't want to have to go back and take this thing off because you've got dirt in those threads. Make sure everything's all cleaned up.
Dude, my quads are on fire right now. I don't know what else we can do. I can't. It's on. It's on. Hold the weight. It's on. I'm gonna hold this side. You work your way to that side, just in case.
Holy shit, I can't believe that worked. Oh man, it looks perfect over here.
Yep. Good seam over here, babe.
Awesome. Nailed it, baby.
Good job.
With the assistance of my beautiful assistant, we were able to get it on. So we tried doing it.
You just said we were able to get it on, and we tried doing it.
We tried doing it.
I'm gonna leave now and let you do this.
We didn't though. I would have remembered that. It ended up being more difficult than what I had intended with 2 people, and last ditch effort, my buddy down the street wasn't available to come help me out. So I just asked the wife to come back out, and I was just gonna basically deadlift it myself, bring it over, and have her just index the holes. And it actually went on like really, really fast and easy. So yeah, now it's on, and I raised the hitch side up to level it out. Now it's a perfect seam all the way across. I'm super impressed with how this is lining up. Now I'm gonna get everything all lined up, tightened down, and trail ready. Let's do it. So right now, all I'm doing is getting these so they're snug down a little bit. They're not tight. I'm still finger tight, some of them on. And I want to get them to where they're just barely making contact with one top bolt. And then I'm gonna go do the other side. That way that they're kind of tightening up evenly. And hopefully this doesn't adjust down and get misaligned after I take the jack stand off. The moment of truth. I'm gonna lower the floor jack and see how it settles. It didn't even budge. Right now, the bumper is fitting absolutely amazing. I cannot believe how easy that was to align and get it perfect. After I moved the jack stand, it didn't budge an inch, which is perfect. Now, I still have some work to do. I have to put the fenders on. I have to trim those. I gotta do the wiring harness and wire up the tailgate or the license plate lights. So there's still some work to be done. However, it is almost 9 o'clock and I have to work tomorrow. So I'm gonna cut it here and pick it up maybe after work tomorrow. We'll see. Outside of the obvious, it being super late when I finally got this thing all locked on, now that it's daylight, I can really get a good look at how the bumper is fitting, and it's fitting phenomenal. I could not be any more happy with how this bumper went on and is lining up. I mean, it's fitting like a glove. So now that the bumper is on, I went through and made all the clearances and made sure that they were perfect. When it comes to clearances, you want to look at 3 major things. You want to make sure the bumper is level. Look at how the bumper aligns with the bottom of the tailgate, and it will basically tell you if it is level or not. If one side's higher than another, you can just loosen some bolts, raise it up with a floor jack, and then tighten it down. The other one is going to be the width of the bedsides themselves. Now those brackets you put on, they've got a little slide adjustment in there. You can obviously loosen that up and kind of push it out. You can finagle the width of where the wheel well sits on the width of the fender itself in comparison to the bumper. And the final thing that you really have to pay attention to is the tailgate clearance. You want to make sure you drop that tailgate slowly and make sure it doesn't impact into the top of the bumper. If your bumper is set too high, it will impact. Mine is a very tight clearance, but it still clears. The fender is going to go on the same way it came off. I'm just going to use some blue tape and protect the bumper. I don't want to scratch the powder coat because the fender is actually going to lay over the bumper just a little bit right here. I'm not gonna lie, that Tac Life laser level that I got is pretty freaking awesome. I've used it for tons of different projects. I actually used it at the back of the truck also to make sure the bumper was level, and I measured the truck beforehand. I measured the top of the bed to make sure the top of the truck was level before I even began. So I use it all the time, and I will link that in the description below. Now I'm gonna cut this fender off and keep on moving. Pull the tape and see what it looks like. It actually looks really good. I kind of like the way it kicks up right there. It makes it look pretty meaty. This is the wiring harness that I pulled out of the old bumper that I'm going to be reusing in the new bumper. However, there are a couple things I'm going to do before I reinstall it, and I wish I had done this to the bumper, but I didn't have the connectors. In order to install the new license plate lights, you have to cut that connector off and hardwire that right into the light. I didn't really like that. I want to have the ability to change those lights out kind of quicker if they go out. So I ended up buying these waterproof 2-wire, they're just connectors that I'm going to wire into the system. I'm going to use the female end on the wiring harness and the male end onto each light. And the great thing about doing this before I install the harness is I can do at least half of the work on the bench. First things first, I'm going to use a razor knife and expose more of this wire by cutting the loom. Now I'm going to cut off the factory plug. Going to hook up this butt connector to one side. For wiring, when using butt connectors and these heat shrink crimping connectors, this is the best crimper I have seen so far. I'm going to put another butt connector on this side. Now I'm going to strip these to the plug. And I'm connecting the black and white wire to the black wire. And now I'm inserting the red wire, connecting it into the green wire. Just look how good these crimps look. Solid. Now we're going to shrink them. I got some of this split sleeving that goes over the wire to kind of protect it from sharp edges. I've never used it before, but I'm kind of excited to see how it works. I'm just going to take some electrical tape and tape up the ends. I think this looks great and it feels great, looks great. I am really impressed with this. And again, I will link all of this stuff I used in the description below. I don't know about you, but I think this looks pretty factory. All right, now I'm gonna do the other side. Time to wire up the male end of these 2-wire connectors onto the license plate light on the bumper itself. Now it's kind of cool with these cutouts here. I don't have the reverse lights to go in here yet, but the wires pull right through. So I'm gonna make this connection right here. I don't have to do it under the bumper. I was actually gonna remove these, but then realized I probably wasn't gonna be able to put the connectors and everything through this hole that's behind here. So this is definitely, honestly, a much better way. All right, the male end of the plug is done and it looks really, really nice. I mean, this cover is really like, it feels quality. It definitely has a good textile feel to it. It makes it just kind of stiff and looks very factory. So I really like these plugs. I'm gonna do the other side really quick and then we're gonna get this harness in. Time to install the wiring harness. All you really have to do is, you can see on the center-ish of the wiring harness, there's these 2 plugs here, and these are the 2 main plugs that connect to all of the sensors and the power of the license plate light. And this, or the female plugs to these, are on the driver's side. You want to make sure that you route this. You can see these 2 plugs are kind of offset in the harness. You want to make sure that they're kind of on the 1/3 closer to the driver's side. And then you literally just kind of lay it out and we're going to zip tie it in. I'm going to start by plugging in these 2 main plugs that are really the life of this whole harness into the frame where it mounts into the frame, and then kind of go out from there and just spread out like a spider web from there. So one is silver, one is black. They just kind of plug in. You get a positive click and you know you've got it in. Now, since we have the plug for the license plate light, might as well just go ahead and do that one real quick. And all you're going to do is take the little nipple detent here and it goes into the slot here. And obviously there's a long side and a short side. Short side is going towards the driver's side. So this plug here is to a backup sensor. We're just going to leave that hanging right there. And then we're going to fish this short end through this hole. Now this end plug right here is to the lane departure sensor system, which uses like a radar sensor, which we cannot use on these steel bumpers, so that will go unused. Driver's side's done. Now we're going to route it passenger side. We can plug in the license plate light. I'm going to install all 4 parking sensors now, and I'm going to orient the plugs so they all face towards the inside of the vehicle. Install is fairly straightforward. You push it in through the hole. I'm going to hold it from the back side to make sure it indexes correctly, and then just press in. That's it. And then I might as well just grab my plug right now, and from the back side, feel where the notch is, and then it's just going to plug in like so. And I'm actually, now that I see the plug is through where the hijack will go, I'm probably going to index it down or up so it's out of the way. Most likely down. That will give the hijack plenty of room to get into this notch and not cut any of the wires here. I almost forgot about the trailer hitch. All it does is index into this kind of hidden plate, and you just press it on. That's it. And now you grab your plug, which I tucked up under the frame so it didn't get jacked up. Load out a little bit, feel where the notch is at. Just make sure you push it nice and secure so you hear a click in. All right, time to start zip tying. Phase 1 is complete. The At the Helm Fabrication high clearance steel rear bumper for my 2020 Tacoma is finally completely done. It took me right around 15 hours of filming time, which is a lot different than normal time. I would bet you could do it in about 5 to 7 hours on your own. Now, step 2, or phase 2, as I'm calling it for whatever reason, is going to be installing the tire carrier. Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to install the swing away tire carrier, we're going to relocate the reverse camera, and we're going to install brand new reverse lights from Diode Dynamic. See you guys next week.